And then 6 were gone, and only 8 remained. We've reached the Elite Eight, the NFL's version of the Elite Eight, with the Final Four on the way. It's Divisional weekend. Thank you for joining us on Inside the Eagles TV. Pray for me, because I'm playing hurt. I got so excited for this show, I injured myself walking. Not running, not exercising, walking through the house, and injured myself. So in the words of the lone man on planet Earth that can say he led the Eagles to a Super Bowl win, Doug Peterson, I have a lower body injury and I'm day-to-day. I've also been ingesting a lot of Marvel material, so if I get out of subject tonight or get off track here somewhere, and I say something about the Kang Dynasty, Secret Invasion, Marvel news, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, Black Panther, just hit me up in the chat line and go ahead and get me back on track. But it's going to be fun. Got a lot to talk about. We have 60 seconds to get ready for our next guest. We have 60 minutes to broadcast with you guys this evening. Thank you again for joining us on Inside the Eagles TV. My name is Jeffrey Knox, GQ. Please stop calling me Godfrey. Please stop calling me Gregory. My name is Jeffrey. My mother is in heaven. She would be furious if she found out that's what you guys were calling me. But again, I'm playing hurt. Not sure what a high ankle sprain feels like. My sports career ended somewhere along the prep level. So I would assume that if there was a high ankle sprain that I was dealing with, this is exactly what it would probably feel like, if not a little bit worse. So I brought along some reinforcements. Please welcome to Inside the Eagles TV, the creator and host of On the Road to Victory. We got some birds royalty in here. My main man, Jimmy Smith. What's going on, big brother?
Yo, Jeffrey, my man. What's going on, dude? Appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you for coming on, man. It's going to be fun. We got a lot to talk about and everything, man. How are you feeling, first of all?
Feeling great. Just stepped out of the quantum realm myself, I feel. I heard you talking about the old Kang Dynasty, everything. I get to live vicariously through my kid. Excited about all of the Marvel, the next phase coming up. So love to hear that talk. But I'm feeling good, man. The playoffs on the horizon, a few days away. Saturday's game. And, we get a third matchup with the Giants this season. And for as much, you want to talk about the first game, they were missing these pieces. That's why they got destroyed 48-22. Or, the next game, they're playing their backups while we ran our vanilla offense and defense. Whatever the, narratives want to be pushed here, it's playoff time, baby, and nothing else matters. And, a lot of narratives have been created about the Eagles these past few weeks because of the fact that Jalen Hurts was out, some other key pieces. And, just for the fact of the matter, it being the end of the season, not running all of your play calling on offense and defense, I think people forget who this Eagles team is. And that kind of gets me excited because when people start sleeping, that's when this Eagles team really steps it up.
It's time to go ahead and dust off those dog masks, man. I think it's going to be a special run all the way to victory. Speaking of runs, okay, so 6 teams are gone. Both sides. We're left with 8 teams on 4 teams on each side, 2 games coming up. We have Doug Peterson matched up against the guy who was actually his coach for a little while here. Doug Peterson, if I'm not mistaken, was actually Andy Reid's first quarterback when he entered the Eagles as the new coach, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he took over, and then Donovan ended up taking over for him. So we got a rematch. They played before of coach and student here, Jacksonville Jaguars and the Kansas City Chiefs. We also have, let's forget about the AFC. We don't care about what's going on in the AFC right now. We're going to take it 1 week at a time. And we got, on the NFC side of things, we got the San Francisco 49ers and the hated Dallas Cowboys. And then the game that we all most care about, the Philadelphia Eagles and New York Giants for the third time in less than a month, actually.
Yeah. I mean, great matchups, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you said it right there. Who cares about the AFC? We'll get to them when they make it. But whoever it is, you got some great teams there. And I love what you said there. Doug versus Andy, growing up as a kid, watching Doug Peterson as the quarterback, now going under Andy's wing and becoming his own head coach, winning our Super Bowl. I mean, great stuff there. So that'll be fun. And, obviously Burrow versus Allen is great. But you said it, man. We're concerned what's right in front of us. And, you look at the 49ers Cowboys game. It should be a good matchup for sure. But either one of them, come get some. The Eagles earned that number 1 spot. And one of the things, though, And kind of side topic here, the Giants, one of the teams I talked about, if they pull the upset and they're the ones that come to our house, we have the home field advantage, right? We earn that number one seed. Everyone has to come through Philadelphia. I was kind of hopeful, a San Francisco, a Tampa, Dallas. That's my mindset. Those kind of teams coming into a cold place like Philadelphia, us taking that advantage. And, you can say what you will about how much advantage goes into that, but I'm telling you, that Super Bowl year, those teams did not enjoy coming out of their domes into our home. And I think the Giants of any team, you and I actually talked about this a week ago. That's a rivalry right there. Eagles, Giants, when they come over to our house, the fans, there's more fights than I ever see anything. It's pandemonium with those guys. And I think for me, I've always enjoyed this one. And I think, the Giants are going to come in here. They know our house. They're used to this weather. There's no excuses here. They know us. And it's going to be a battle to the death. But again, I think one thing people forget is the licking we put on them the first time. We were up by 34 at one point. We beat them in the end by 40. I think it was 48-22. That's great. Either way, we dominated. And Miles Sanders had a career day, 144 yards. You had Jalen Hurts thrown for over 270 yards. He had like 77 rushing yards. Getting the ball all over the place. And one thing people forget is we didn't have Dallas Goedert or CJ Gardner-Johnson for that game. I hear about who they didn't have. Adoree Jackson. Oh, good for them. Because for me, we were missing one of the biggest focal points of this offense, Dallas Goedert. And, when he came back, Hurts was out. And now Hurts is back. We had the vanilla play calling. When those two start clicking, it just opens things up for AJ, Devontae. This offense, I talked about Miles Sanders, having that 144-yard game against them. You run that ball right down their throats. They finished 27th, I believe, giving up 144 yards per game. How funny is that? And they were, I believe, 31st with 5.3 yards per rush given up. So this team, they have struggled against the run. We can run it down their throat. We can kill them with play action. Anything we need to do here. And that defense speaks for itself. Shutting down Saquon Barkley last time, I believe it was 28 yards he was held to. And, if you keep containment on Daniel Jones, one thing they don't do is turn the ball over, but they do give up sacks. So get pressure, get to him. And I think that I'm pretty excited about this because they got to come to our house. But again, it's not, if any team that it doesn't really hold much, that home field advantage, it's the Giants, man. They want to come in here. They want to ruin this, beautiful season. But I'm pretty confident about this matchup.
Recency bias is always a thing whenever we're talking about football and things of that nature, man. So everybody's always excited about what they just saw or overhyped about things that they just saw. We'll say it that way. The last vision we saw of Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles starting offense didn't look great. So we believe for whatever reason that's how they're always going to look. The last vision we saw of the Giants was a pretty decent one, albeit against a Minnesota Vikings defense that I have trashed time and time again. But they just look at what's impressive, what they just saw. If a guy has a great game, he's the next coming to Joe Montana. If a guy has a bad game or struggles, he sucks. What's your opinion on where the New York Giants actually are as they enter divisional weekend?
That's a great question. And you said it right there with the recency bias. It's what have you done for me lately? And, I think that they're riding this wave. And you said it, Minnesota's Vikings defense is horrible. It is atrocious. And, they went out there and put up 430 some yards, I believe it was, on them. 31 points. Like, if they could do that to the Eagles, best of luck to you. So one of the things, the Eagles do is bend, don't break. A lot of people hate, oh my gosh, we're playing off. We're doing this soft coverage. Look, we were number one in pressure, in sacks, in quarterback hits. We were first against the pass. That's yards per game, yards per attempt, yards per completion. And, this team, they're built to stop anybody. And Avonte Maddox is out right now, but we got CJ back. So I think there's no excuse as to why no one, anyone could come in here and try to do what, the Giants just did to Minnesota. That's great. You're not going to do that against the Eagles. So for me, this Giants team, I'm not afraid of them. And I think, what they did to this Minnesota team, I think, look, anybody could have done. We beat the living crap out of them. I was at that game earlier this season. I was welcoming the Vikings. Come get it, man. I really am not afraid of them. I know Justin Jefferson's good, but so what I'm saying is, this Giants team, it's really not, and I'll give it credit where it's due. Good job to them making them playoffs, but they were 9-7-1. They didn't get 10 wins this season. And honestly, if you look at, and look, you take numbers with a grain of salt, but they can tell a story. And if you look at their offense, they are bottom of the pack when it comes to total yardage, points per game. One thing they do well is run the ball, and they don't turn the ball over. You do things like that and have a good defense, you can win games. but this is the playoffs. It's time for everybody to bring out everything they've got. And I think you're going to see a much different offense and defense from the Eagles. And everyone can, think that, oh man, this week 18, that's what the Eagles will look like. And I love how you said that. That's not going to be the team. For me, it's going to be that team that went out and put up 14 wins this season. So good job again to the Giants for making the playoffs, doing your thing, beating the Minnesota Vikings in their house. That's great. But for me, middle of the pack defense, they're, middle of the pack in sacks. They're not getting turnovers. They're just, to me, they're not scary. You can run the ball all over them. You can set up your RPOs. We live off that. That's the bread and butter shotgun RPOs. I think we can eat them alive there. And that defense, if you can again shut down Saquon Barkley, held him to 28 yards the first game, you do that again, put it in Daniel Jones' hands, and I think we'll find success there.
If you tune in late, you're listening to On the Road to Victory is Jimmy Smith. He's joining us on Inside the Eagles TV tonight. We're glad to have him. And I'm still dealing with this high ankle sprain, man. Like, I don't know if you heard me before I brought you on, but I was walking through the house, literally walking through the house. I injure myself doing strange things now, like sleeping, getting off the couch, and walking.
Guilty.
So I'm thinking about this high ankle sprain, man. So let me actually backtrack a little bit. And I said at the top of the broadcast that this is the third time we've seen them in a month. It's actually the third time in about 7 weeks, so less than 2 months. The second time in a month. So let me go ahead and clear that up and everything. I like to be accurate when I'm talking. But more about the Giants here. So we mentioned Saquon Barkley and things of that nature. He had a tendency to go for big plays against the Eagles from time to time during the early stages of his career and everything, but it never really led to wins or anything. They've been able to limit that recently and things of that nature. So now you have an Eagles defense with a very much maligned and criticized defensive coordinator, which I think is a travesty. I think when you have like a team record in sacks, I think when you have a record seemingly set every single time that we turn on the TV or look around, they have records now for things that I didn't even know were records. Like, you got 5 guys who are have so many pressures. You have 4 guys who have double-digit sacks. You have this guy has done this for the first time since the first time we've heard this happen, and so on and so forth. But every time we turn around, it seems like this Eagles team is doing something that has never been done in the history of Earth and on football. But Jonathan Gannon continues to get the criticism. So, I mean, how do you feel about that? I think it's undeserved. I think this team could actually win the next 3 games, win a Super Bowl, hoist the Vince Lombardi Trophy. Every final score could be 6-3, and Eagles fans would still find a reason to criticize Jonathan Gannon. That's my take. What's yours?
Oh, I thought maybe we were going to cross ways here because this is where most people disagree with me and don't like what I have to say. I was a guest on a lot of shows before this season started, and I got a lot of negative feedback. A lot of people didn't want to hear what I had to say about this defense. I sought out. I wanted to teach the media what was going on with this defense. I kept hearing, we're switching to a defense that does this. They're doing this. They're doing that. And I just questioned, wait, they do realize that we ran odd fronts all of last year. So my whole point this offseason was you have to have a nose tackle. You have to have somebody that can play that 0-1 technique. You can't have Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave playing out of position. But what you can do is line them up next to each other. And I've created all these graphics, Jeffrey. I broke these shows down and all these multiple schemes he would run, but why you needed to add a nose tackle, specifically Jordan Davis, and why you needed to sign Hassan Reddick, a Sam linebacker. And Howie Roseman went and did exactly that. But I talked about adding a vet corner, 2 linebackers. We did all these things that Howie needed to do. Well, now you gave the pieces to Jonathan Gannon. And for me, last year, I was enthralled with what he was able to do with the lack of talent. And look, these guys are in the NFL. Don't want to knock on any of these guys. Really a big fan of a lot of those guys. But if we're talking about superstar talent that we have right now, it was nowhere near it. So you look at what he was able to do and what he was trying to do. It was like, okay, let's not have Alex Singleton as the nickel linebacker here, but what else were you going to do? So you hope that TJ Edwards continues to grow. You hope that Howie goes out, drafts somebody, signs somebody. Well, we add Kaiser, we get N'Kobe there. So you add Bradbury outside, trade for CJ. You get all of these pieces for Jonathan Gannon, right? No excuse. And people keep telling me, and I'm like, look, why do we need to say?
Talking, I'm looking at the roster. I'm with you. Go ahead.
But it's like, why do you need to, let's look at this. And when they struggled against the run, you had Ndamukong Suh and Linville Joseph next to Hargrave, next to Cox. You got Milton Williams as depth there. You've got quite the interior with the Sam linebacker being Hassan Reddick, Kyron, and Patrick Johnson as depth. You've got edge rushers on the other side with Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham. And now right now we're missing Derek Barnett, Janarius Robinson. There's some guys hurt. Robert Quinn just came back, but you've got such depth there. And we talk about, I love what you said there. And people have been on me, Jeffrey, hard. And the coolest thing I had, Jeffrey, was Hassan Reddick retweeted my off-season video where I broke down why the Eagles would be a top 3 defense and why they would dominate with this multiple scheme. Now, they came out and did exactly what I talked about. And it's not blitzing every play. It's not cover 0. You got to play man on everyone. And I know that's what the media is telling everybody. And it's like, that's great. But I think they should do a little more research on how defenses work in today's NFL. And one of the funnier things I hear is, well, we got to get Vic Fangio in here. And I'm like, well, you do realize that Jonathan Gannon, a lot of the stuff he has taken from Mike Zimmer, Vic Fangio, those kind of guys. So right. You're going to get the same thing. And that's getting pressure without having to send extra guys. So you see those odd fronts. You've got schemes where you've got Jordan Davis, Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Josh Sweat, Hassan Reddick. That's a pretty insane line. And they are destroying. You talked about setting records. I remember at one point, it was the first time we had 3 players with 10 plus sacks since 1989. Jerome Brown, Reggie White, Clyde Simmons. Whoa. Then a week or 2 later, you get first time in NFL history, 4 players with 10 plus sacks. You just mentioned. That's pretty good, right? So I keep hearing every week, and I keep setting out to be like, let me try to help you understand. And I'm friends with some of the trainers and chefs with the Eagles. I've tried to make connections, and at one point during the season, I get this text message, and the trainer's like, can you please get out here and try explaining this defense again? He's like, because it's kind of sad that Jonathan Gannon is getting so much heat right now. And a lot of the time it was player execution. You talk about 3rd and 30. You talk about a lot of things that people, Jonathan Gannon, like if he could be out there, smacking somebody, or he could be doing the coverages, I'm sure he would give it a shot. But a lot of times, this is a very difficult defense. And that's why I made those videos this offseason to really try to help show what they look like, what you were going to see this season, because it's wild. It's not a lot of blitzing. It's a lot of zone, and people get freaked out about that. But there is man coverage. There's so much that goes into it. So many quarters and halves coverages that it's not just cover 2, cover 3, where people think it's so simple. And I tried my best, Jeffrey. And let me tell you, the amount of hate mail I got because of it. And it's like, I'm not trying to upset you. I just want you to understand that this is a great defense.
It's facts. It is what it is.
Right? And now look at it. End of the season, and we're sitting here and people are still complaining. You just said it. We could win the Super Bowl. This guy's getting head coaching job gigs, and he needs to be fired.
Super Bowl 6-3, and people would still bash Jonathan Gannon for some reason or another.
Blows my mind.
Part of it is a little bit of spoiled. Like, we think great defense means nobody scores. That's not what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't college football. You're not going to beat everybody 75-0.
Right.
This isn't college football. It's not the team that just has the great horses wins, because even if you have a 3-13 team, they got NFL players over there too.
Right.
They got guys over there that can ball too.
Preaching.
You mentioned the Vic Fangio thing. I don't see him as a logical replacement if Jonathan Gannon was to move on, because we know that Howie and Jeffrey like to be the guy to find the next guy. And we generally don't really see retreads or things of that nature. As you mentioned, there are fingerprints from the Vic Fangio style of defense all over Jonathan Gannon's defense, as well as Ed Donatell's defense. But just looking at those 2 things in conjunction, Ed Donatell's defense doesn't look very good with the Minnesota Vikings.
Right.
Jonathan Gannon's defense looks fairly acceptable and reasonable as far as what they're doing with Philadelphia. And the interesting thing I think about it is this. It's just the way the game is played now.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of blitzing. I've put up stats all season long, and all season long, the same thing has happened. The New York Giants blitz more than anybody else in the National Football League.
I put that.
The next 5, 6, 7, 8 teams that blitz most often all have losing records.
Facts.
And it's been that way the entire season.
Tell him, Jeffrey.
So I don't necessarily get the Jonathan Gannon hate necessarily. Is he stubborn at times? Absolutely.
For sure. There's times I'm mad, but you said it, right? What are we? Every play, we're supposed to stop them. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, this is the NFL. You said it. The way the game is played
now, they're trying to prevent deep passes. They don't want to get beat deep.
Bend, don't break.
They want to bend but not break, exactly like what you're saying. They want to limit the explosive plays, and they want to generate pressure with that front four and things of that nature. And I will tell you this. If we're talking about blitzing every single down, you're going to get picked apart. We're talking about getting picked apart all the time. Great quarterbacks are going to kick you apart if you're blitzing all the time. And then the other side of that is this. It's interesting that people don't realize the fact that because we're playing these zones, because we play this off coverage, because we don't man up on every single down, That's why you got all these interceptions.
Aha, the turnovers. And that's right. It's something I explained in last night's video. I was telling because someone jumped on my video and was like, what are you talking about? This defense is horrible. And I'm like, they're literally 8th in points allowed. They were 2nd in total yardage. I talked about 1st in yards per game in passing, yards per completion, attempt, 1st in sacks, 1st in quarterback hits, pressure. I mean, it's outrageous. And it was just like, are you joking? Because it's phenomenal defense right here we're seeing, and it's actually better than Buddy Ryan's that I grew up, and it's, that's the holy grail of defenses. And it's funny because you hear the Vic Fangio stuff, you hear the, bring him in, and it's like, that's literally the same defense. So you guys are just going to have the same thing. I'm someone that I agree with what you said. I talked about before the season, I thought Gannon would be gone anyway, so let's keep our eyes on Denard Wilson. I think that could be somebody that really steps it up. And obviously Gannon has a soft spot for him, defensive backs coach. But look, man, I just saw that at the bottom there. But Tim, appreciate you tuning in, my dude.
Appreciate you, Tim. Shout out. If Gannon doesn't go anywhere, we're probably going to have to promote Denard just to hang on to him. He just got a DC interview. Was that Cleveland?
Yeah.
So a lot of these guys that I'm thinking that may transition into that role. We'll get there in a second. I actually want to talk about possible replacements as well, but let's actually talk about Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen. Have they done enough to actually earn head coaching positions, in your opinion?
Well, that's a great question. I think, there are a lot of really great candidates still out there right now. So they've got a strong pool to go up against. But do I believe they deserve, some kind of recognition for what they've done? Yes. And I think they deserve to be looked at, because one of the things I talked about before the season was, man, how good did they both do in their first years as coordinators? And this is just their 2nd year. They're still learning things and, getting things under their belt. They're very young coaches. And we all know not everybody comes out a super, great coach. You're not Mike Tomlin, just come in and dominate everybody. And I think that, these guys, as much as people want to, hark on stupid stuff about, this on the offense, it's always just picking apart little things. It's like they've been phenomenal. The offense at top 3 in points, top 3 in yards. And that's while missing your MVP quarterback for a couple of weeks. And I think that, those guys have done a really good job. But one of the reasons, they were brought in when Sirianni was hired, I did a breakdown of him, all of his coaches. And I talked about how smart Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon were. And I think they are showing that at a crazy level. And when they had interviews last year, Gannon with the Texans, and there was some consideration for Steichen, there was just chatter that every time they interview, people are blown away with their football knowledge. And you talk about the game is changing. So if you're someone that is ahead of the game, you are implementing this new offense that people love, or you got this defense that, bend, don't break. You're not, you're stopping that big play on offense. That really can intrigue people. So I think these guys, do I think that they're better than some of these candidates out there? No, but I do think that they've done a great job, and they're definitely considerations. I'm not sure that either of them get a job. I think Gannon might get that Texans job, but I think Steichen might still be here, but he's done great.
My question is, are teams willing to be patient in a league where patience isn't necessarily a thing? Are teams willing to be patient for a deep playoff run to wait on these guys to become available so you can hire them, or do they, make knee-jerk reactions and, hire the first guy that's available because they're trying to get their seasons and things of the nature going and try not to lose as much time as possible? I think that's my one concern, but I think they both earned it. I think based off of numbers alone, we can argue about play-by-play, things of that nature. Is Jonathan Gannon stubborn? Like I said, I absolutely think he can be stubborn sometimes. Sure. There are times when I'm frustrated and want to rip my own insides out. There are times when I feel like there are too many, we're waiting too long to make adjustments. You mentioned how impressive he was. Everybody's been impressed with this guy since training camp last year. Not this past all season, but the one before that. He kind of owns the room. Has some guys call him out publicly, things of that nature and stuff like that. For the most part, he has the respect of his guys, and they appreciate the fact that, he leans on them a lot for their information and their insight on how the game should be played and so on and so forth. But I honestly thought for a very long time that we would actually lose Steichen before we lost Gannon. And the reason I said that was because with this being an offensive league, and even if you mention like the Houston Texans, it's very rare that we see teams go from defensive head coach to defensive head coach, things of that nature. But it's an offensive league, especially now when you're talking about the AFC South, and who knows what in the world the Colts are going to do. But
yeah,
you got a guy down there in Jacksonville. You got Tennessee with Malik Willis, and we're not exactly sure what he's going to become yet. looks like it's going to take some time there and everything. And he's a project, but you got some quarterbacks that are young and they're hungry and they seem to be ready, and they were highly touted, and they're in the AFC South. So you may go with an offensive-minded coach, and that's kind of why I was sort of leaning towards Steichen. At this point, we got 5 vacancies?
I think you're right, yeah.
And I think the thing that we're seeing here is we're looking at Shane Steichen and stuff, and up until they decided they wanted to try to win the MVP for Jalen Hurts there in Week 15 versus Chicago and almost got him murdered. Aside from that, we've seen some huge jumps from them as far as play calling, as far as offensive scheme, things of that nature. You got a 1,000-yard rusher for the first time in his career. You got 2,000-yard receivers. Like I mentioned, those records that seem to come up every single day and every single week. 2,000-yard receivers on this franchise for the first time in franchise history, and the elevation and the move forward of Jalen Hurts. And I think Dallas Goedert has a career year if he doesn't get injured. Yeah. So with that type of resume and everything we've seen from Steichen, again, we could call play calling into question from time to time, but I think he's kind of earned it. And I think we may lose him before Gannon.
It's a great point, Jeffrey. And, you nailed it when you said, this is an offensive-minded league. The reason I think the Texans, I just think they're a horribly run organization. You had said, a lot of times you won't see. They'll try to switch it up, right? Okay, we better go offense this time. I think that they're stubborn, and they're like, no, we wanted defensive-minded. We're bringing him in. That's my thought process. But I'm 100% with you with Steichen. That offense, you get a young quarterback with a coach like that, and that's a great point, man. So I could definitely see Steichen being out the door first. That's definitely good points, man.
Now let's talk about injuries, man. Jalen Hurts is the big one. QB1, we know what's been going on with his shoulder. It's not going to be 100%. So this is what I figured out. So I tend to peek around and be nosy and things of that nature. And I'm actually going to pull up the quote here and things of that nature. But I actually saw where a doctor actually said something about his recovery time and things of that nature. While I'm pulling that up, we'll get back to that in a second. But he's a full participant in practice on today. Now it's a walkthrough, so I'm not exactly sure if we should be hyped up and excited and rowdy about that. But he was a full participant in practice. And then you get to the other guys. We got Avonte Maddox, did not participate with a toe. Based on the way my ankle is feeling, I totally understand that and feel that. I'm wondering, Jimmy, if we actually see Avonte until the Super Bowl, if then. Tackle Lane Johnson, we know what's going on with him. Linval Joseph, limited participant in this walkthrough with a calf injury, and Robert Quinn with the back injury, which is a different injury from the one he was on the injury reserve for. What did he have, a knee?
Knee, yeah.
So now we got the back injury, so we may just need to just ask now if Robert Quinn has it anymore and whether or not this is the last run and if the body's actually starting to deteriorate. Well, I was excited about those 18.5 sacks last year, though.
Yeah, I thought, we know his age. We knew that he isn't the same guy, but we also know that we won a Super Bowl with a rotation. And when you add a guy like that to the rotation we already had, that's the hope, is to break records, to do those things. But we did it without him. So now that you had Josh Sweat banged up, he is back. He's a full participant. Let's go. So you've got Sweat and Graham on that side, but now Robert Quinn drops back to the third on that depth chart. So that's good because he hasn't really been producing. And now you mentioned it. Look, it's a back injury. He's limited. I get it. Old man River here. He's banged up. But for me, thank God Josh Sweat is back because we desperately need him, and he has been phenomenal, those 11 sacks this year. So grateful to have him back. And Linval Joseph, he's been popping up the last couple of weeks. He's a little bit older, so we'll just hope that it's limited early in the week, so hopefully he's good. But, you got Jordan Davis, who's continuing to get his reps up. Got Sue still here, so we're good there. You said it, Lane. We know what's going on with him. He is putting his life on the line out here. Love that, man. That's crazy that he's not getting the surgery. And then Avonte, you said it. They didn't put him on IR because the season would be over. So that means there is hope, right? So I don't know that he comes back for the championship game, but maybe you get him back for the Super Bowl. But having CJ Gardner-Johnson back, that's the blessing, and you can have Josiah Scott playing nickel. You can have Reed playing safety and CJ, flip-flop there, whatever you need. And they did that last week. So yeah, next man up. Let's go. This is a much healthier team than most teams in the NFL. And look, I think that with these injuries, Hurts, he's going to be fine. He was a full participant. We knew he was going to be sore after that game. We knew he would get healthier. So for me, I'm thanking God that we are getting these guys all back at the same time. Goddard, Hurts going to get on the same page. You got your right tackle back. So very pumped up, Josh Sweat, CJ. So let's go, Birds. Let's stay healthy.
Your core is everything, man. Like, I can't imagine, because I don't want to say stuff like this, but he could bleed to death or something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
So
These dudes are crazy, man.
I'm not exactly sure how smart it is and everything. I'm glad that he's doing it. I hope he's okay and things of that nature. And I'm pretty sure things are probably going to work out and things, but
He's got one of the greatest trainers, man. So I'm grateful for that. But oh man, it's scary. It really is.
All right. Is there any way that the Philadelphia Eagles lose to the Giants on Saturday at any way possible, in your estimation, in your opinion? How's that going to happen if it happens?
If I had to give a number percentage, because there's always a way. This is the NFL. Any given Sunday, or I guess Saturday in this case. But for me, I think if the Eagles play the way they can, and they don't make stupid mistakes, and they don't shoot themselves in the foot, which we've seen, and that can kill any team. So we go out here, play our best, and we don't make dumb mistakes. I think that they have maybe a 10% chance of beating us. I really don't think there's a strong chance. We showed in that first game, being up by 34 points, and then they got some garbage time in there. They scored again, the final score was 48-22, but that was a shellacking, that whole game. And Saquon Barkley, 28 yards. And that guy looks like he's at his prime right now. And I love to see that. As much as I dislike the Giants, I love me some Saquon Barkley. Love to see him healthy and doing well. But I love to see the Eagles being able to shut down someone like him. And week before that, it was shutting down Derrick Henry. He had 30 yards, and I believe Tannehill had like 33. So their quarterback had more rush yards. And I think that almost happened with Daniel Jones. I think he had more than Saquon. So keep containment so you're not letting the quarterbacks run, but let's keep shutting that run game down.
All right, so this is my quote here. So this is Dr. Schwartz, who is a surgeon from the Jersey area. He describes Jalen Hurts' injury as this. My understanding was his injury is a sprain to the SC joint, and what that is, we commonly refer to as the AC joint when we normally talk about injuries. That's where the collarbone meets the end of the shoulder on the outside. This is the opposite end. This is where the clavicle meets the breastbone, the sternum. It's a much less common injury. The good news, as this was diagnosed more or less with an MRI, which probably means it's a grade 1, maybe a grade 1+, which is probably mild to moderate in terms of sprains. The good news is they generally heal about anywhere from 6 weeks. So we were 4 weeks into it at the time when he said this. We're 5 weeks into this now. The most important thing was he didn't re-injure it by taking another blow. This is the part that actually concerns me. Now, he actually went on to sit up here and say that the discomfort will linger from this injury. Typically, the recovery time is 6 weeks. We're at the 5-week spectrum now. 6 weeks is the estimated repair time and the recovery time, and that's if he isn't playing football. That's if he isn't taking shots, things of that nature. Now, even after he's fully recovered, so he's probably, 85, 90% now. Once he's fully recovered at 6 weeks from this injury, there will still be discomfort for 8 weeks, which would be 2 more, which would actually put us in the Super Bowl territory. So he's going to deal with this probably for the remainder of the season. And apparently, the most discomfort is going to come from motions that come across the shoulder, i.e., the way I see that is throwing across the body, so rolling right and throwing across his body.
Yeah, and that's something that with that injury, we knew he's going to be feeling it for the rest of this. And look, if he were a normal man, I would say, okay, I'm a little concerned, but I call him the Terminator. And the reason I do is because I have never heard of someone like Jalen Hurts. And when I had his trainer on, when I had his chef, each of them, the way they talked about him, like, this guy's getting up at 4 a.m. He wants this kind of blah, blah, blah with this, a certain amount of protein, but he needs a certain amount of this. Like, he puts so much care into every little thing he does that he is making sure he is 100% at everything he does. And when injuries happen, when there are things he needs to work on, this guy, you can assure yourself that he will be out there doing everything he can. And I already know that he's definitely do that. We all know that. But I think for me, he's different. I mean, we know he's different, but I mean, he truly is built different. And when he is in there squatting 625 pounds, when he is in the weight room at 4 a.m., these guys aren't even waking up at the bro barn. They're coming out at like 6. He's already done his first set. He took his break. Now he's ready for his second. Like, this guy is an animal. And look, it doesn't matter if you're an animal, you get hurt, it happens. But you remember when Adrian Peterson came back and it was like, is this real? Is this guy? I feel that's what he's going to be. He's going to come out here and it's going to be sore for him, but he's going to play right through it, just like he did when he initially got that hit. stood right in the pocket, destroyed the Bears. And I think he's going to come out here and maybe a couple bad throws at first. You talked about it, maybe not as many cross body throws you're seeing there. But I think he's going to, he'll get through it. He'll brush it off. He'll be sore as the Dickens the next day. But that's going to be each game for 3 more games. And I think that's what he knows. Look, if I can push through this pain for 3 more games, we can hoist that trophy. I'll get perfectly fine. He'll heal up in the summer. We'll be good to go. But yeah, I get it. It's concerning. That's your franchise. That's the future.
I see this game being lost only one way. I actually see this team only losing one way. Actually, 2 ways the remainder of the season. And it's the way we've actually seen them lose during the course of the season. If this team doesn't implode, if this team doesn't turn the ball over 4 times and give the other team opportunities and screw themselves, if this team doesn't defeat itself by some questionable play calling and some bad coaching, there is nobody left that this team is going to lose to. I have no fear of the Cincinnati Bengals. We're back to talking about the AFC, and I said we weren't going to do it. I do not care about what the Buffalo Bills are doing. One concern I do have is if we actually get to Glendale and the Chiefs are there. That's a concern for me, honestly. But I do not fear the San Francisco 49ers. Back to the NFC side of things here. San Francisco is what it is. Great season. Applaud them. I have nothing but the total amount of respect that you should have for Kyle Shanahan. I think we use terms so often, Jimmy, that we kind of allow them to lose their power, and they don't mean as much as what they used to. So we throw words around like genius all the time, and guys aren't necessarily geniuses, but Kyle Shanahan is a genius.
Facts.
He actually made Matt Ryan and Kirk Cousins look better than they were. Created careers for both of those guys. And now he actually has the Cinderella story that we've seen in Brock Purdy. But honestly, I think at some point, Brock Purdy is going to wake up, realize that he is still a rookie, and Cinderella stage coach is going to turn into a pumpkin. That's my opinion. Do you have the same opinion or vary in any way?
I've been heard saying the same thing, echoing. Look, I come get some. AFC, NFC, anybody, if the Eagles do not shoot themselves in the foot with the turnovers, not running the ball, not being stubborn on defense, nobody can beat us. And when you look at the Niners, I'll be honest with you, I would love to take them on, but I also would love to take on the Cowboys in the NFC Championship to beat them to go on. And I think that's what it might come down to. I think that
would be a perfect script. I just don't see Dallas getting there.
The only reason I think that Brock Purdy, you talked about getting his match. I don't know if he gets to find out what a real defense looks like by coming to the Eagles, but I think he'll get the next closest thing in the Dallas Cowboys. And, they've got a mean pass rush, but hey, the Niners got a mean offensive line. The secondary of the Cowboys, real questionable. Brock Purdy's been able to step it up, do some special things there for them. I think it's been great to watch him, but what they were saying about Jalen Hurts, I think that's who Brock Purdy is. System quarterback. You throw him in. Look, the kid's done phenomenal. No other rookie. I mean, he's breaking records. I mean, applause to the kid, not to take away, but Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk with that offensive line, that defense, Kyle Shanahan as your head coach. Yeah, that's a recipe for success and good for them. That's great. But I think here, going against the Dallas Cowboys, the Niners have a good defense, but their secondary is questionable. I think the Cowboys, depending on what Dak they get, they could beat this Niners team. And I think it's because their quarterback isn't as great as everybody makes him seem. Good job for him. But I think he's going to finally realize he's not that guy just yet. He's still very young. He's got a long way to go. And again, I'm happy he's having that Ben Roethlisberger type come in, whoop some butt season. But for me, Jalen Hurts is that real story. So look, either way, they're great stories for me. So if he does beat the Cowboys, we're all going to celebrate. They couldn't make it. And then we get to find out. Brock Purdy versus Jalen Hurts. Would love to see it. But if the Cowboys win, then it's kind of how I feel. Micah Parsons, if they can get him loose, he might give Brock Purdy a tough time.
So you're writing the perfect story here. So in your story, the Eagles beat the Giants in the divisional round, beat the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC Championship game, and then
Andy Reid
in the Super Bowl. Oh, and then kill Andy Reid in the Super Bowl. Yeah, that's the perfect story, man. Like,
right?
That's some storybook stuff. And we know in the NFL that stuff happens all the time and everything. So I don't even know if we can use the term storybook anymore. Like, it just seems like it's just real every time.
Scripted.
Good stuff. All right, so I didn't have it like this. I guess I kind of thought the Eagles and the Cowboys were going to battle it out for NFC East superiority, as always. I kind of thought these guys were going to be in it. I did not have 3 NFC East teams in the Final Four as we move into divisional round.
Same.
So very impressive things of that nature, but
right.
How good are the Giants really? Like, I'm not impressed by the Minnesota Vikings, and you are not going to get me to move off of any stance that I've already had about the Dallas Cowboys based off the fact that they went into Raymond James Stadium and beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and their division winning 7 wins.
8 and 9 or something. Yeah, like, come on, dude. That was embarrassing that they're out here cheering 35-year-old or 45-year-old Tom Brady out here. And look, man, for me, I agree with you. Tampa, Minnesota.
It was, honestly, I don't have the numbers in front of me, something around there, but it wasn't good. It was sub 500.
Yep. The Cowboys and the Giants, kudos to them. Good job. Impressive. NFC East, 3 out of the 4 teams. That's awesome. But like you just said, they are not the caliber of the Eagles, the turnover machine, Dak Prescott. If you get him flustered, if you shut down their run game, make them one-dimensional, they're in for a tough time. The defense is not as good as people think. And the 49ers, Giants, same can be said about the Giants. I honestly shut down Saquon. You're good. Not afraid of their defense. I honestly feel that way. And I think it would be a beautiful storybook written, Jeffrey, and to take on Andy Reid, how many lickings he's given us since he's been gone. I think that would be some nice revenge to see. Nick Sirianni going up against him would be pretty cool. The new coach, because as a kid, I loved Andy Reid, and my kid is like infatuated with Sirianni. I feel like how I was with Big Red. So love to see it, man. And that would be a great Super Bowl.
I keep telling myself, like, forget the AFC. Like, we're talking about the NFC.
Yeah, how about it, dude? I keep drifting.
I'm a sidebar here, man. Like, I listen to some of what people say sometimes and stuff, and occasionally I'll mix it up with a fan here and there and everything. Not because they've actually gotten to me, just because I think it's funny. So I have a tendency to go back and forth with guys just because I know that, though you may not realize this irritates you a lot more than it irritates me, and I'm just having fun because I have nothing to do for the next 15 minutes. But there's one thing that they do say that gets on my nerves. Stay right here in the moment. Why are we looking so far ahead? First of all, I'm just going to say this. This is not Jimmy Smith saying this. This is me saying this. You guys can get mad at me. Email me. Do not email him because I said it. You don't play for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Facts.
Their job is to stay in the moment, stay in the week, and
thank you.
Next opponent. You don't play the next opponent next week. If we want to talk about draft stuff, we can talk about draft stuff. If we want to talk about 20 years ago, we can talk about 20 years ago. We are writers. We are content creators. We own a publication that has been around for 15 years, and we have readers with varying interests. Some of them want to talk about guys to look at in the draft. Some of them want to talk about the next training camp. Some of them want to talk about the last training camp. Some of them want to talk about a game 3 weeks from now, and we appease all of those people. If you don't like something that we put out today, stick with us. I promise we'll put something out for you tomorrow, but you don't play for the Eagles. Their job is to stay in the moment, stay in the week. We can talk about whatever we want to. So I'm moving past the divisional round. I said I wasn't talking about the AFC, Jimmy, but I'm going to do it anyway. If we get to the Super Bowl, I said the only team I actually have fear of is not the Dallas Cowboys, the New York Giants, the San Francisco 49ers, the Buffalo Bills, or the Cincinnati Bengals. There's one team that I actually think can ruin this whole thing, and it's the guys, the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. How do they beat those guys if they actually see them?
Oh, my Lord. That would be almost just like 5 years ago. You better just bring it all. Nick Sirianni, 4th downs, going for it. Do whatever you possibly can. I think you would have to put up as many points as possible. But here's the great thing for me. We have a top 3 offense and a top 3 defense. For them, maybe the best offense in the game, but their defense, very questionable. So as much as they're going to be able to put up points, even if we have a great defense, I think we can put up more. And that, at the end of the day, is your John Madden quote. All you got to do is score more points than the other team. So I think it would be a slobber knocker, a battle to the death. But you have seen if Patrick Mahomes gets flustered, if you can get to that offensive line, which we are breaking NFL records doing, there is a way. There is a way. And look, I'm not saying it would be easy. It would be a battle to the death, but I am with you 100%. If anybody would have me breathing every day for 2 weeks waiting for the matchup, it would be the Kansas City Chiefs, because Andy Reid, love the dude. That is a genius right there. The guy, his photographic memory, the things he's able to do with his offenses, Love his creativity, but then he's got Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, and it's like, oh Lord. So that's what I hope that Sirianni and Hurts can grow into, a great relationship for a long time. But that's the blueprint right there of what you want. And you talked about it, the offensive minded guru with the up and coming great young quarterback, and look at what they've been able to do. And if this NFL weren't so amazing, that guy would, back in the day, Patrick Mahomes, he would have just had 10 Super Bowls in a row for them, but in today's game, there are so many great players. So it's fun to see, but I'm with you. I'm on board. But I would love to see Andy Reid versus Nick Sirianni in this Super Bowl. It would be who's got the bigger cojones and who wants to be calling the crazier plays at the craziest times.
It's interesting, man, because the thing is, now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, I remember Andy Reid, and we actually watched this for 14 years. Like, he's supposed to be 14-3, 13-4, 12-5. This is what Andy Reid does.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Reid, that has always been the question mark, is that guy that gets in the playoffs.
Exactly.
And you're down by 3 points, and there are 2 minutes on the clock. That's the Andy Reid we don't trust.
4th and inches. Let's throw a Hail Mary here. Yeah, I had my issues with him for sure. Sirianni does kind of the same stuff, though, gets away from the running and stuff, and it very reminiscent.
I try to be as patient as possible, man. Like, we're sitting here talking about Gannon and Steichen and, Andy Reid's decision-making process and time management and things of that nature, and Nick Sirianni and stuff, man. I've picked on Howie Roseman, and I stand by a lot of what I said, and I stand by what I said now. Howie Roseman deserves all the credit. I've picked on him when he deserved to be picked on. I've given him credit when he's deserved credit. 2017, 8 draft picks, only one of them still here, and that's Derek Barnett.
That was a rough one.
But the guy's done what he needs to do, and I'm Team Howie right now. Like, if this guy actually gets this done, things of that nature, even if he doesn't, he's the executive of the year in my mind. If he wins the Super Bowl, go ahead and carve the bust down. Howie Roseman needs to be in the Hall of Fame. That's what I'm doing.
That's my guy. I talked about at the beginning of the show catching a lot of slack for sticking up for Gannon this offseason. And one of the things, the biggest heat I got was for saying Jalen Hurts could develop and trying to teach people about quarterback development and being told that quarterbacks can't develop. Definitely not Jalen Hurts. And defenses, the things I heard this offseason were some of the most
quarterbacks can't develop. Okay.
Those people should not be talking football. The amount of
so
sorry. Many people, you heard it. It was atrocious to hear the slander toward Jalen Hurts, toward this defense, but then Howie Roseman, and rightfully so. 2017, passing on Justin Jefferson. I mean, yes, bad decisions. But you look around the league, there are a lot of teams that passed on a lot of these players and a lot of good players. And when you put it all together, you look at what Howie Roseman's, what he's been able to do as of late, and it's been pretty phenomenal. Now, last year, Devontae Smith, Landon Dickerson going out, and Milton Williams really building this team, Zach McPherson pieces I really liked. I thought, okay, he talked about in that offseason, I've learned from my mistakes. He came out and said it. I know I messed up, but I brought some people in. I learned some things, and wow, okay, this guy is taking it on the chin. That's what you want to see, but let's see it in action. Well, that year I thought, oh my, he actually did something. But the issue that year was, and what I told people was, stay patient, okay? Because you're going to have bumpy roads this year. But what's going to happen the next year is we have a plethora of draft picks and cap space, and Howie Roseman is going to turn this into a dynasty. And people were like, okay, dude, you're definitely smoking something, doing something. And I said, hear me out. I'm going to break down why. So I showed all the draft picks we had, all of the cap space. And there's another thing that people get. Cap space is a complicated thing. People don't like numbers, but they sometimes want to play with them. And okay, we don't have money. We can't sign this person. I went right away this offseason and said, this is how we trade for a big name receiver like A.J. Brown. This is how you sign a guy like James Bradbury. Now, dude, the fact that we did all these things is still insane to me, that Howie Roseman literally went out and did all these things. But it was right there. It was right there. The proof was in the pudding. If this guy continues doing what he's doing, and he was doing it, and like you said, he better be executive of the year, because this guy went out and literally did all of the most insane moves you could do at each position that he needed. He was like, okay, I need that top sand linebacker. Mine. Oh, I'm going to draft that top nose tackle. Mine. I'm going to trade for a big name receiver, give him an extension, give him the dummy year so that the salary cap hit is small this year. We spread it out. Then we'll restructure him years down. I mean, the guy knows what he's doing with the salary cap. It was the drafting that was in question. And how much was he putting his nose in others' business when it came to coaching and things? So there's much to be questioned. So I'm with you 100%. Totally get the strife people had with him. But I love the dude, put a little faith in him. I actually have a picture on my YouTube and all my socials when I got to go to one of those close practices this year. I got the nitty gritty, and I got to actually talk to Howie again. I've met him before, but we had a nice conversation. And I told him, I said, look, I know you're catching a lot of heat here, man. I said, but I believe in you. I know you're about to make all these moves. We had a really cool talk, but I said, when you win the Super Bowl this year for us, just remember, I'm the guy out here making shows, telling everyone to have some faith. And then would you please come on my show for an interview? And he was like, all right. And I was like, I was laughing about it, but he said he would come on. So throwing it out there that I am going to have him on here, but having faith in him after that moment, I was like, man, this is pretty much my livelihood here. Putting all my chips on Howie Roseman. And I told him, I said, look, man, you don't know the amount of hate I got. And, you know, it was a great time. And last time he saw me, I was in a wheelchair. My health was really bad. And I told him, I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to work my way toward working for the Philadelphia Eagles. And dude, the laugh we shared, the media is all, Hurts can't do this. Wait till they see. I got to share a laugh with our GM. And now I fast forward to the divisional round and we're laughing, Jeffrey, and we're going to be laughing harder when that bust is made and he goes out with 2 more first-round picks this year and some cap space and truly builds this thing as a dynasty. This isn't a one-year wonder kind of thing. We have a quarterback that truly did develop and will be the future, and we have built around him, and the pieces are set, man. You've got guys that are learning from vets. You've got pieces in place. I'm very excited. Howie Roseman, the best executive in the NFL, and I think we're going to have some special years here for the next at least 3 to 5.
Start recording the conversations, man. Like, seriously, like, now that you got a more record and things of that nature, just start recording the conversations. I actually did an interview with Jalen Hurts at the beginning of the season and stuff. We were talking about a Pepsi campaign he did and stuff like that. Nice. And the people that I was doing it for didn't record the interview. So
I know. I wish I would have had someone. I was like,
I also interviewed a wide receiver who shall remain nameless, who actually said some stuff about Carson Wentz. And we ran with the story and things of that nature. And then he had some people call us back. He didn't call us back. He had some people call us back. And the whole thing was, he didn't say this. What are you guys doing? What are you guys saying? But we had to record it.
Yeah.
Not going to say that receiver's name or anything of that nature and stuff like that. We're going to let you guys play process of elimination. You and I will talk about that off air. But I've actually forgotten the last few questions I was going to ask you because I'm still stuck on the person that told you quarterbacks can't develop.
Oh, I couldn't. I remember I made a post last year, and it was after the 19th game, and it was the first career 19 starts, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen. And I put a little disclaimer. This is not saying that Jalen Hurts is better than Josh Allen right now. What I'm telling you is that quarterbacks do develop. And remember, there was a kid named Josh Allen that people said, oh, he can't develop after he came out sloppy. Now, they gave that kid more credit. You could talk about whether that's because he's white, whatever. But my thing is, Jalen Hurts, they never gave the kid a chance. And whether it was the media or the fans still pissed about Carson Wentz, whatever their ulterior motives were, it was like, wait a second. Why are we not giving this kid a chance? Did we see what he did in his first career start coming out against the New Orleans Saints who, the Eagles are definitely not going to be able to do anything against them? He beats them. Sure, he loses to the Cardinals then, but he showed us promise. He came in that Packers game. He showed the offense started moving. Rager caught a ball for once in his life. I mean, it was like these guys are rallying around him, right? So let's rally around him and see what he's got. So that first year as starter, it was like, okay, this is our quarterback. Let's go. And it was weird. People were definitely really weird last year. But this offseason, it was like, all right, look, I know the Deshaun Watson chatter. I tried my best to combat all of it. And it was like, let's look how he's not trading all of our cap space, all of our draft picks for an aging quarterback like Russell Wilson. It's just not happening. We have all the pieces. I've talked about it, Sam linebacker, nose tackle. We got to add those. Build around Jalen Hurts. Get that receiver. They did that. And go to that. It is pinned on my Twitter. Go through the comments and find yourself a few good laughs because all the blue check marks, all the experts are in there explaining to me that, well, unfortunately, Jalen Hurts just isn't the same kind of quarterback as Josh Allen. So therefore, he cannot develop as a quarterback. And I kept asking, well, if you could explain in detail, why this young man is not capable of developing. Well, you see, it's his arm strength. Right away, I knew, okay, so you just don't know what you're watching, because this guy has plenty of arm strength. It was actually he needed more torque, less velocity on his throw. He went in, he worked on his footwork, his ball placement, how he's holding the ball in the pocket, how he's putting his hands on it, how he's letting the ball go. All the things he never got to work on because he never had the same system since high school. So this offseason, he actually got to go out, work on all those things. Look at him, developed. Oh, wow. And he developed way quicker than anyone ever wanted to give him a chance. And it was upsetting to see, because I told you, his trainer, his chef, I try to get people on board, because it was like, listen to what these people are telling us. Like, they had on the TV, Deshaun Watson going to be traded to the Eagles. Jalen Hurts sucks. And the trainer's like, let me turn it off. And Jalen Hurts said, leave it on. And the whole workout, he just sat there listening to the media telling him how he couldn't be the starting quarterback for the Eagles. And it just told me right then and there last year, I was like, oh, this is the guy. And he's going to work harder than anyone ever to develop. And the trainer was explaining, look, he's got tape on. I wake up at 5 a.m. and there he is out in the living room watching tape on Randall Cunningham, Donovan McNabb, Michael Vick. He's watching all the Eagles greats, black quarterbacks that were able to stake their claim as great quarterbacks, period. And this franchise has given them the opportunity to do that. And I think he was blessed. He knew his opportunity without all the hate outside. He blocked it off. So I call him the Terminator. The guy comes in, means business. And hearing all that slander about him, it's truly beautiful at this time, because now all those people, the Dan Orlovskis, everybody that he can never, this guy is one of the greatest I've ever seen. It's like, yeah, we know. His second year as starter. Can't develop, huh?
One of the reasons I love this team is because it gave African-American quarterbacks an opportunity and things of nature. I love the Philadelphia Eagles. Randall Cunningham made me a diehard fan. So that's where I am with it and everything.
My first favorite.
Hey, man, we got about 120 seconds left in the broadcast. Let everybody know how they can get with you.
You can find me at On the Road to Victory with Jimmy Smith on YouTube. You can check me out down here on Twitter at OTR2Victory. It's the same on Instagram. Facebook, there is On the Road to Victory pages, groups, all of that stuff for you guys that are down for talking birds. I do a show every day. We have breakdowns. I do behind enemy lines, talking about the opponent. I do injury reports. Today was the initial injury report. Had that out earlier. Got top 10 matchups. I break down everything I possibly can. And Jeffrey, I'm definitely throughout this offseason going to have you on the show. I like to bring on guests throughout the offseason. So if you guys are into that stuff, always just trying to build a family atmosphere, a place for you guys to come, be positive, talk about the birds. And look, we can be negative together. We can point out all the negatives, but give you a place if you're tired of all the slander and the misinformed hate for the Eagles. I try to, bring something different. I try to be the change here. And you and I have talked about that before, Jeffrey. And that's why when I met you, it was truly an honor to start getting to know you. And it is beyond an honor to be here tonight. So I want to thank you for having me on. Thank you to everybody who tuned in or will be tuning in. And you guys you ever need anything, you ever need a friend, you're going through anything, please feel free to reach out. Always try to be there for everybody, because we all go through things in life, and going through it alone is just no way to do it. So God bless all of you. Appreciate you, and go Birds.
Same here, man. I appreciate you as well. You actually had me come up with a new concept and a new part of the show here. Like, I'm gonna have a new segment. It's gonna be called Mythbusters. We're gonna start with Jonathan Gannon.
Oh, I love it. I'm in.
Man, I appreciate you. It's been an honor to get to know you and create this friendship with you as well. You're welcome to come on whenever you want to, man. You know that. I'm gonna have you on, and it's recorded now, so you can't back out. So,
let's go.
All right, man. Well, we thank all of you guys who tuned in and hung out with us for the last 1 hour or so. 1 hour flew by, so we're gonna definitely have to have Jimmy Smith on again so we can talk about him and what he's doing over there On the Road to Victory. Twitter, IG is down at the bottom of the page. Make sure you give him a follow. We appreciate y'all. Go Birds. And we will be back to talk about the NFC Championship game. That's a promise. Appreciate y'all. God bless y'all. Good night.